an absolute pleasure to have today's guest with me today, Tyler, president of American Dream Search and host of Recruiter of Steel podcast. It's a pleasure to have you here with me today, Tyler. If you could please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do.
Thank you, Jorge. Thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure to join you. Yes, Recruiter of Steel, that's kind of the tagline here. I host a podcast called the Recruiter of Steel podcast, where we do interview successful leaders and salespeople within the metals industry. Going to have an episode dropping very soon with one of the executive vice presidents of SMA, which is Steel Manufacturing Association. So it's really good to get guests from around the industry talking about steel because it's not talked about enough, right? It's such a vital industry for America, for civilized world. It's been around for ages and it's not going anywhere. And that's why I'm happy to recruit for this industry. As president of American Dream Search, I head up a recruiting agency that specifically focuses on recruiting sales and leadership talent within the metals industry and play a big part in the steel industry specifically, mainly with service centers and mills, but also working all the way down the supply chain to end users. So I've had a lot of experience dealing with folks in the industry, dealing with people with boots on the ground, selling to customers, dealing with, the different fluctuations in price. And it's a really good place to be. So happy to be recruiting in that space, but also giving back a little bit in the form of a podcast.
Yeah, it really does sound like a great place to be in. And yeah, we're very excited to have you here. We're really interested in seeing, how industrial companies can actually attract, $1 million sales reps. So we can definitely dive into that. However, before we get into those, I wanted to ask you just why did you create this business and where did this kind of background come from, if you may tell us.
Yeah, so unlike most people in the steel industry, I don't have any experience in it. My parents weren't in it. It's not a multi-generational thing. How it started was I ended up coming out of college working for a site called Indeed.com. It's the largest job site in the world. And that was my first venture into sales. And I sold for them for 5 years, did quite well, but always had that entrepreneurial bug, always wanted to go off on business on my own and do something on my own. And started researching different businesses and found out that, you know what? I'm exposed to the world of recruiting, having worked for Indeed, having talked with hundreds of employers. So let me start a recruiting business, right? So I did that on the side for a couple years and never had the guts to jump in full time. It's very difficult. And for any salespeople watching, there's a difference between being a seller versus being a business owner, right? Being a seller, yes, you can get commissions. Yes, you might have a little bit more free reign, but you're really off on your own when you're your own logo, right? You can't rely on a big logo behind your back. So that was the challenge, right? Is do we leave this comfortable salary and comfortable bonus plan and kind of go off on our own and do something full time? And never had the guts to do it, but was forced to one day when I was abruptly laid off from a different role that I had just 8 weeks before our firstborn child came into the world. So that came out of nowhere, very abrupt. Daughter was going to be born in 2 months. So I really had a decision to make, right? Was it going to be, do I get another corporate job and keep pushing this off? Or do you have the guts to go in full time and try to make something happen? And that's what I did. I went in full time. I did everything wrong in the first 6 months. We did not make any money. What I will say is that I was recruiting everything for sales, but I wasn't niched down enough, right? The key to being a recruiter and having a successful business, I think, in general, is you have to have a niche. And whatever that niche is, you need to own that niche. So what happened was I was recruiting everything sales, dealt with a lot of bad clients, dealt with, everything that could go wrong in a recruiting business went wrong. And at one point, we signed on a client that was a steel service center, and they used us to staff their new flat roll distribution team. And we were successful at it. We had a couple of successful placements, things were going well. And I said, you know what? Let's not fix what's not broken, right? Let's keep at it. We had a bunch of candidates in process that didn't make the cut, but were still very good on paper. So I said, let's take these to market. We did. We ended up getting new steel clients, and then it just started snowballing from there, right? I saw that this
Beautiful.
industry did lack, a big recruiting presence. It's a small industry, so I don't think it could have like a ton of recruiters in it, but I also think that there was a need for somebody that really put themselves out there and went on digital. And that's what I did. I went all in on LinkedIn, started building a community there, started advertising the roles that I was working on, and then it just started snowballing from there. And then kind of coined this name Recruiter of Steel, right? Because that's the only avenue that I play in is just steel, just metals.
That's beautiful. And a lot of what you just said resonates with me because I mean, I can identify with that. Just sometimes one of some of our services can be too broad, like for example, recruitment. Everyone needs a job and everyone's looking for jobs. Tech sales, SaaS, all types of industries can be really broad, but how does the ideal customer profile know that you're talking directly to them, Like I think it's really important, and I can identify definitely with the finding the niche and having and knowing what it is that we do and what we provide. And that's a great background that you work for Indeed. You understand how it works, you understand how sales works, you've seen how difficult it is being a seller and being a business owner. So allow me to ask, what would you say differentiates American Dream Search from other recruitment platforms or services like Indeed or LinkedIn?
Yeah, so American Dream Surge is a boutique recruiting agency, right? Right now it's three awesome employees. It's me, myself, and I. So that's who operates
Amazing.
American Dream Search, right? And being a boutique firm, you don't have the bandwidth to recruit in legal, recruit in SaaS, recruit in steel, all these different things. Because the best way that I can provide value to my clients or to my candidates is to know their world, right? Can I speak their language? Do I know what hot rolled and cold rolled steel is? Do I know what selling on the spot market versus contractual sales means, right? These are terminologies that are thrown around all the day in this world of steel, but unless you're actually in it talking with folks, you're not going to know what's going on. And you're really not going to be that effective at recruiting because then the terminology's off. So you have to really find a place, niche down in it. And I'm the only recruiting firm, as far as I'm concerned, that is just specializing in metal sales talent. There is no other recruitment firm in the world that is just focusing on sales and leadership talent in the metals industry in North America. That's just what
Mhm.
we do. So very specific, but also at the same time, I'm a one-man operation, so you can't stretch yourself too thin, right? And I will say we've built a very successful large network of folks that are in this industry over time, having spoken with a lot of sales leaders and sales candidates. I'm able to tell what makes a successful rep from a mediocre rep. I'm also able to tell what makes a successful company from a mediocre company. And having that insight and that knowledge specific to the industry gives us a lot more value to give than, let's say, a generic recruiting agency that maybe doesn't really know the world of steel. They know how to recruit, but they can't speak the language. And that's what we give our clients.
Yeah, it's really great. I mean, you understand their world, you understand their language, you understand how to make a successful rep, and you're the guy in male sales talent. And that kind of brings me to question, when last time we spoke, you mentioned a couple best practices and just how to understand the sales process best. Why would you say that steel sales is more complex than just pricing model, and why is protecting margin more important than just pushing volume?
Yeah, so that's the thing. So a big sign of, I would say, an average rep is somebody that just relies on price, right? If they can't sell anything else and they're just relying on whatever the price in the market is that week, that's not somebody that is adding an additional layer of value. Almost anybody could do
Oh
that,
yeah.
right? That with the pulse. So at that point, you have to think, okay, what is going to set apart my firm? Because, price is price, but what is also going to set apart the reps? And what I would say is you need to have reps that are able to sell the value adds, to able to sell whatever that service center has, whether it's certain cut to length lines, certain lead times with the mills, certain relationships, certain reputation in the market. You need to be able to sell just beyond the price and say, you know what? If you work with me and you work with XYZ logo, um, it's not, you might not have the cheapest price in the market, but we can guarantee you that your product is arriving on time. We can guarantee you
Oh
that
yeah.
we can do XYZ processing and get it done in the time frame that you needed. We can guarantee you we could ship large quantities to you when these others can't. Whatever your value add is, whatever that X factor that you have as an organization, you need somebody to be able to overcome that inevitable your price is too high, right? Because
Mm.
not
Yes.
everybody could be
Yeah.
the Walmart of the companies, right? Some are going to have in the middle range, some are going to be on the high range, and you need to have reps that understand how to sell whatever that value is.
Mhm. Understanding the business value, finding someone who can understand like the vision of the organization, the business value in general, who knows how to handle these classic objections without sounding generic or sounding salesy is really important. And that's really great. Love to ask about like, how you're training them. But before we get to that, I wanted to ask, where do your reps come from, and like what should they focus on in order to be hired by steel companies? Are you recruiting from like universities, or are they applying like online on a platform that you own?
No, so essentially I'm a third party recruiter, right? So steel
Hmm.
companies, let's say, I don't know, a service center or a mill out there will approach me and say, "Hey, we really need a top sales manager. We need a great VP of sales to lead our team, or we need an outside sales rep in Indiana. We're down a man there." And I'll say, "Okay, happy to work with you," right? And then what I do is I will go poach talent from their competitors. So if there is a competing service center in the region, it might not be a good look if they're directly reaching out to those people from that competitor, right? But I can do that as a recruiter. So
Oh yeah.
essentially, anyone in the industry, to me, you're either a client or a source, right? If you're working with me, I'm going to give you great talent. If you're not working with me, I might be coming after your people, right? And that's because I'm working with clients that are using me to recruit the best talent. And so that's what I do.
That's great. That's really great. And yeah, that's it's a really interesting method of you being a third party, just no, I don't want to say the word anonymous, but like just non connected, interconnected with the organization that you're looking to hire for. You are just a recruiter and you're poaching talent from competitors. That's really good. So what would you say is like, why would you, how do companies attract this top talent of sales rep when you go into these competitors? Like, what would you say would make a sales rep want to go to another workplace? Is it like culture or the retention of sales rep?
Yeah, so I'll start with this. So what brings people to the market, right?
Yeah.
Oftentimes it's a comp plan change, right? Whenever I see somebody in an organization that has been doing one thing one way for a while and all of a sudden they change their comp plan, right? Then all of a sudden somebody's used to accustomed to making a $50,000 bonus every year. Now all of a sudden they do the math and they say, "Wait, I'm gonna get screwed out of $10,000 this year, even if I do the same amount of business because of the changing comp plan." So that's always a situation where if you're an organization and you're thinking about changing your comp plan, just understand what your best reps are pulling in. And if you take away their commission, they're gonna look elsewhere, right? You have to understand that. The other reason I would say I see people go to market is management changes. Whenever we see a new VP come in or a new sales leader, new president, oftentimes that's a culture shock, right? And a culture change. They start mixing things up. Maybe they're a little bit more micromanagey at first. Maybe there's just a big change that that person isn't accustomed to and maybe doesn't like. So, management changes, comp plan changes. Lately, we've seen a lot of consolidation in the industry. Think of Ryerson and Olympic joining forces. I think it's Russell Metals and Klockner, and some more that are happening. So, those consolidations, those mergers and acquisitions almost always lead to a restructuring event, and then people come on the market because, they're consolidating, right? And positions are getting cut. So all three of those reasons are, why I see people come to the market. Now, if you're in a company and you're saying, okay, how do I attract these people to my organization? First thing I would say is lose the notion. This is the biggest mistake that I see service centers particularly making is they just want to hire somebody with quote unquote a book of business. There is no such thing as a book of business. I'm just going to put
Oh
that
yeah.
out there. And what they're trying to say with that as well, we only want to hire if we could find somebody that has built relationships over the last 20 years, The clients will move with them wherever they go. And if they're doing 10 million there, they can do 10 million with us, right?
Yeah.
Oftentimes, number one, that never works because every company's different, right? If they're selling to their clients and they're accustomed to, same day delivery, and then with your company it's going to be 3 days, you can't guarantee that that account's going to move over. If they're accustomed to a certain price and your company is X amount more, you can't guarantee that that client's going to stay on board. There's so many other factors from that. I would say, if somebody actually does, quote unquote, have a book of business, what that really means is it's probably 3 to 5 close relationships that they have from maybe some decent size accounts that may move with them. But think about what that means for the company, right? If you're just trying to hire somebody for their business, you're not hiring them because they're a culture fit. You're not hiring them because you like the way they sell. You're not hiring them even for their ethics or integrity. You could probably care less about that. You're not hiring them for potential. You're hiring them for whatever business they're doing at that moment. And that's a really, really bad approach because if that's just what you want to hire for, it's going to take forever to find somebody. So you'll probably be waiting months and months before you actually pick somebody up that has that actual book of business. Number two, you're just not probably providing training or any resources to that employee either. You want a plug and play solution. And, are there folks out there that can bring accounts over? Sure. Is it great that somebody on day one could bring you, a $2 million account? Yeah, that sounds great. But when they look to leave you, that account is also going to leave, right? Because that account has no
Yeah,
loyalty to
of
you. It's loyal to
course.
the sales rep. So if you're listening to this and you're just hiring for a book of business, I'm not saying you can't prefer it, but if you're just hiring somebody for a book of business and you don't care about what that person's potential is, you don't care about if they're a culture fit, you don't care how they sell, you're not doing it the right way. What you need to do is understand, okay, what kind of company do we want to form, right? Do we want to be the biggest and best service center in flat roll in the Midwest or structural steel in the South, whatever it is? Okay, that's your vision. Think about what culture you want to have, right? What is the culture? What is the vibe? How do people sell, right? Is it consultative? Is it very transactional? How do you go about those things? And then you need to cultivate what is the perfect candidate profile, right? Somebody that will be that culture fit, somebody that does sell the way you want them to sell, or is willing to learn that way, right? Someone who's moldable, coachable, somebody who's hungry, right? A book of business often means someone has used the same 3 or 4 or 5 accounts their whole life and is accustomed to just managing those accounts. That doesn't mean they're going to be hungry and pick up the phone and try to grab some new accounts, right? They might have lost that drive and that hunger because they're complacent. You want somebody with the drive and the hunger to bring in new accounts. You want to cultivate a culture of hunger, a culture of prospecting and always looking to grow, right? You want that growth mindset.
Yeah.
So really think about the company that you want to build. Really hire for potential. Okay. Think about how the person sells. Look at their resume, right? Even if they were at 4 companies in the last 6 years, which might seem a lot, were they successful? I mean, if they're selling at, 20% gross profit and they're, doing 10,000 tons a year, regardless of where they go, and that you keep seeing that number tick up and up and up, that's still a good sign, right? There's a lot of people with potential out there. There's a lot of people that can back up their numbers, and they might not have that, whale of an account that they can bring to you, but I'm sure if you train them the right way, I'm sure if you foster a culture of drive and motivation and willingness to grow, I'm sure they can get that whale, right? So hire for
Absolutely.
potential, hire for sales skill set, hire for culture, hire for, integrity and selling the right way. Product knowledge is great, but it's not everything, right? You ideally want somebody that sold what you're selling, but even if they haven't, do they have the other intangibles that if they learn, then they can get there? So, what I would say is
Exactly.
lose the idea of just a book of business. You're playing way too safe with that. And lastly, and I'm sure this is no surprise, but you have to pay people, right? If you want to hire people, you need to pay them. Um, you know,
Makes sense.
uh,
Definitely.
yes. So you need to pay up. You need to understand what the market averages are, and maybe pay a little bit of a premium. if you want that A player or that B player, right? So that's what you're going to need to do.
Yeah, would you say that uncapped commissions is a good practice to have?
Yeah. No top salesperson wants a cap commission plan. So
Yeah.
oftentimes what I do is I will recruit from the companies that cap their salespeople off. It's very simple. I mean, that's a huge draw for them, right? Is if they're accustomed for the last 5 years of, okay, I have $100,000 base and my bonus is capped off at 20%. Well, do you want to make more than 120? Because if I put you
It's
here,
a
you could make 220, right?
it's a really
No
good opener,
brainer.
definitely. Would
So
you like to
yeah,
make more money? And
right.
yeah, I totally agree. With these in the steel industry, in the steel sales industry, is there a reason why why companies would cap their commission?
Usually you see it from the larger service centers, which are great starting points, I think, for people, right? And
Yeah.
great points of growth too, if you want to get into management and different corporate levels. But their sales staff, I would say, is usually general line, so they're selling a bunch of different types of metals, which is great exposure for somebody first coming into the industry. I'll just throw that in there. If you're looking to come into the steel industry, my recommendation was go to a general line service center where you can get exposure to all different types of products, right? So that's one piece of advice there. But why do
Okay.
they cap their commissions? I don't know. Every company's different. Every company has their own financials. But the companies that are most successful are the ones that are not capping off their salespeople. I can tell you right now, I'm working with an organization that their highest paid salesperson W-2'd more than their president, and almost double what the president makes. They made 900 grand last year. So,
Man,
the
great.
opportunity is out there, and
Great.
if you're capping somebody off at 150,000, and then they see, okay, I could make almost 10x here, you're gonna lose them. That's it.
Hmm. Couple questions come up from that, but we can talk about that in a second. That's really great advice. Really great advice for those who are looking for better opportunities. Growth is always great, and I understand that it can be difficult when we are comfortable kind of where we're at and we find comfort and when we it can sometimes feel like really difficult to find a new job, but there's always better opportunities out there, like depending on what it is that we're looking for, what is like our ability or our desire to grow within an organization. I think that American Dream Search, what they're doing is promoting those who are looking to grow and offering these opportunities for great workers. So speaking about the company, what sort of any sort of business growth ventures that you're looking to explore this year for growth, desired outcomes or goals for the company that you could even talk about on a high level?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get into too much detail now. What I'll say is, people ask
Sure
me
thing.
about the name, like, why is it American Dream Search, right? And the thought of that was, you know, I started off in sales, right? And that's what I know. And sales led me to my American dream, right? I was able to make pretty good money quickly. I was able to buy a house. I was able to get married. I was able to have two beautiful children. And for me, that was possible through a great sales job, right? That's what set me on the path to do that. And, then it ultimately became a remote role. I had this flexibility, and I said, you know what? I want to recruit roles that could help people achieve their version of the American dream. If for them, that's buying a house, if it's getting married and having children, or maybe it's something else and it's traveling the world or doing whatever they want to do, you need to have the opportunity to do it. And, right now we're seeing prices go up everywhere. Things are not as affordable as they once were. Um, but even with inflation, if you can out earn it, the problem is if you stay in a role that's not sales and it's a fixed salary and you get your little, 2 or 3% raise every year, you're not gaining anything because that's what inflation's going up more than
Yeah.
that. But
Oh yeah.
that's what you're at a minimum, you're staying on pace with inflation. So you're never actually increasing your earnings ever. So my thought is if we can connect people with these awesome sales jobs in industries like steel that are critical to America, we could help the American dream in both ways, right? For candidates, we can give them an opportunity that They have flexibility. They could live wherever they want. They could be remote, or at the very minimum, they could earn a very great wage and maybe buy that house, maybe add to their family, maybe do all the different things they wanted to do. And then for companies, we're supporting them by helping critical companies that are so critical to America's infrastructure and our civilization, like steel service centers and mills. And we're helping them grow by giving them great salespeople. So we're just trying to support the American dream that way, right? And
It's
I
beautiful.
think as as we think forward and what do I want American dream to become, um, I think there's other industries that could benefit from that, right? I think, even adjacent industries like building products, like transportation, maybe medical. Um, I think if we can supply great salespeople in all of those industries, we can do the same for candidates and companies in those. So I think over time, what we'll look to do is maybe add some recruiters and add some headcount to American Dream Search and add new verticals to go into. We're not there yet, but I wouldn't count that out for sure.
Yeah, it's a great vision and requires a lot of planning, but that's great that it's in the conversation, It's definitely something that we look. It's always like as you were as we mentioned a couple times already. it's- w- We're always looking for growth. Companies are always looking for growth, and that's great to hear that American Dream Search is doing the same to provide opportunities for all Americans. For all Americans. I'm just curious, is there any talk around the office or talk amongst the three great employees that you have? Any talk around the office about how artificial intelligence is coming into play in your industry or in your business and how it could potentially help you grow or any sort of uses that you're finding for it?
Yes, so AI is definitely coming. We do use AI here. What I will say is, so two-part question, right? I mean, AI in the world of recruiting and AI in the world of metals, right? Let's start with metals, which is more relevant to this podcast. I
Sure thing.
have been approached by two leaders in the AI steel technology area that we're going to be partnering with, and that if you are a service center, if you are a mill or a trade, whatever, organization in the steel industry, there are AI tools that will do wonders for your company. There are AI tools that could help you prospect a hell of a lot more efficiently. There are AI tools that, let's say you get a request for a quote for a company, and, you know, speed to getting that quote back helps you win the deal by like 4x, I think the statistic is. There's an AI tool that will read the quote or read the email, send back uh, an actual quote
Report or
instantaneously,
quote.
and you'll beat everybody because it's instantaneously through AI, and it'll put it in your system and do everything faster than any human ever could. That's just one example, right? Um, there's AI call agents that if you called in and maybe you couldn't afford an inside salesperson, AI can do some of that job, right? So there's a lot out there, and it's only going to continue to grow. What I would say is if you are in the metals industry, spend a little bit of time on AI each day, look into these platforms, contact me if any of that interests you specifically. Um, but yeah, there's a couple things out there for AI, and it's only going to be more prevalent as the years go on. Um, from a recruiting perspective, AI is used in there too. I mean, I would say one of my favorite AI tools is a tool called Co-Recruit, where it's any conversation that I have with a candidate, it records the conversation, it takes notes, and if I miss something, if I forget something, I can just go back, ask it a question, and it brings it back up based on the conversation. So that helps me with note taking with candidates, hearing what they say. Um, it's incredible. And there's so many other tools out there too. So yeah, if you're not looking into AI yet, start doing it.
Great advice. Really great advice. I love it. I think it's all great. So, all right. So, Tyler, if someone wanted to get into contact with you, learn more about you, what's the best way to reach you or learn more about American Dream Search?
Yeah, so you can go to our website, www.americandreamsearch.com. You could also go, LinkedIn is the best place to get a hold of me. So Tyler Rossi on LinkedIn. You could shoot me a connection. You could follow me. And follow our pages too. Follow American Dream Search. Follow the Recruiter of Steel. We post our updates there. So, if you're looking for a job, we'll always post our new opportunities on that site. And if you're looking for, to listen to our podcast, we'll always post it there too. So feel free to follow us on all the LinkedIn accounts we got.
All right, sounds great. We'll definitely post down below your website, your LinkedIn, all of your socials. It's a pleasure to have you here today with me, Tyler. Thank you for being here, and thank you for your audience for listening. We'll see you in the next one. Thank you so much, Tyler.
Thank you, Jorge.